Forest and wildlife sanctuaries. So hello friends, welcome back to the second chapter of class 10th NCERT geography book. So let's see what is here. तो चलिए हम पढ़ना स्टार्ट करते हैं और देखेंगे कि क्या क्या इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ यहाँ पर दिया गया है, क्या इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है, हम समझेंगे चीज़ों को और हम बहुत केयर लेकर आपसे पढ़ेंगे। ठीक है, तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं क्योंकि यहाँ पर बहुत सी डिटेल्स दिया हुआ है, जैसे कि पिछले क्लास में था उनमें से काफ़ी एडवांस्ड है जो कि आपको समझने की बहुत ज़रूरी है। वी शेयर दिस प्लैनेट विथ मिलियंस ऑफ अदर लिविंग बींग्स starting from microorganisms and bacteria, lichens to banyan trees, elephants and blue whales. This entire habitat that we live in has immense biodiversity. We humans, along with all living organisms, form a complex web of ecological system in which we are only a part and very much dependent on this system for our own existence. For example, the plants, animals and microorganisms recreate the quality of the air we breathe, the water we drink and the soil that produces our food without which we cannot survive. Forests play a key role in the ecological system as these are also the primary producers on which all other living beings depend. सो बायोडाइवर्सिटी और बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटीज का कॉन्सेप्ट देखो क्या है ना, इज इमेंसली रिच इन वाइल्ड लाइफ एंड कल्टिवेटेड स्पीसीज, डाइवर्स इन फॉर्म एंड फंक्शन बट क्लोजली इंटीग्रेटेड इन अ सिस्टम थ्रू मल्टीपल नेटवर्क ऑफ इंटरडिपेंडेंसीज. Flora and fauna in India. So if you look around, you will be able to find that there are some animals and plants which are unique in your area. In fact, India is one of the world's richest countries in terms of its vast array of biological diversity. This is possibly twice or thrice the number yet to be discovered. You have already studied in detail about the extent and variety of forest and wildlife resources in India. You may have realize the importance of these resources in our daily life. These diverse flora and fauna are so well integrated in our daily life that we take these for granted. But lately, they are under great stress, mainly due to insensitivity to our environment. Conservation of forest and wildlife in India. So conservation in the background of rapid decline in wildlife population and forestry has become essential. But why do you need to conserve our forest and wildlife? Conservation preserves the ecological diversity and our life support systems, water, air and soil. It also preserves the genetic diversity of plants and animals for better growth of species and breeding. For example, in agriculture, we are still dependent on traditional crop varieties. Fisheries too are heavily dependent on the maintenance of aquatic biodiversity. In the 1960s and 1970s, conservationists demanded a national wildlife protection program. The Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in 1972. The Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in 1972 with various provisions for protecting habitats. An all India list of protected species was also published. The thrust of the program was towards protecting the remaining population of certain endangered species by banning hunting, giving legal protection to their habitats, and restricting trade in wildlife. Subsequently, central and many state governments established national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, about which you have already studied. The central government also announced several projects for protecting specific animals which are gravely threatened, including the tiger, the one-horned rhinoceros, the Kashmir stag or hangul, 3 types of crocodiles, that is fresh water crocodile, saltwater crocodile, and the ghorial, the Asiatic lion, and others. Most recently, the Indian elephant, black buck, chinkara, the great Indian bustard, that is Godawan, and the snow leopard, etc., have been given full or partial legal protection against hunting and trade throughout India. देन ये देखो प्रोजेक्ट टाइगर 1973, तो फॉरेस्ट एक्ट वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट कब आया था 1972 में, द इंडियन वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट 1972 में। देन आता है आपका प्रोजेक्ट टाइगर 1973 में। सो टाइगर इज वन ऑफ द की वाइल्ड लाइफ स्पीशीज इन द faunal web. In 1973 the authorities realized that the tiger population had dwindled to 1827 from an estimated 5,000 at the turn of the century. The major threats to tiger population are numerous, such as poaching for trade, shrinking habitat, depletion of prey-based species, growing human population, etc. The trade of tiger skins and the use of their bones in traditional medicines, especially in the Asian countries, left the tiger population on the verge of extinction. तो इसका बोन्स जो है स्किन ट्रेडिशनल मेडिसिन्स में यूज़ होता है। अच्छा, सो since India and Nepal provided habitat to about 2/3 of the surviving tiger population in the world, these two nations became prime targets for poaching and illegal trading. कौन-कौन है? India and Nepal. Project Tiger, one of the well publicized wildlife campaigns in the world, was launched in 1973. Tiger conservation has been viewed not only as an effort to save an endangered species but with equal importance as a means of preserving biotypes of sizable magnitude. Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, Sundarban National Park in West Bengal, Bandhavgarh National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Sariska Wildlife Sanctuary in Rajasthan, Manos Tiger Reserve in Assam and Periyar Tiger Reserve in Kerala are some of the tiger reserves of India. तो टाइगर रिजर्व का नेम एंड देयर लोकेशन दैट मेनली स्टेट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. You should know that. Then the conservation projects are now focusing on biodiversity rather than on a few of its components. There is now a more intensive search for different conservation measures. Increasingly, even insects are beginning to find a place in conservation planning. In the notification under Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986, several hundred butterflies, moths, beetles and one dragonfly have been added to the list of protected species. In 1991, for the first time, plants are also added to the list, starting with 6 species. Then types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. So even if we want to conserve our vast forest and wildlife resources, it is rather difficult to manage, control and regulate them. In India, much of its forest and wildlife resources are either owned or managed by the government through the forest department or other government departments. These are classified under the following categories. Reserved forests. More than half of the total forest land has been declared reserved forest. Reserved forests are regarded as the most valuable as far as the conservation of forest and wildlife resources are concerned. Then protected forest. Almost 1/3 of the total forest area is protected forest. As declared by the forest department, these forest land are protected from any further depletion. Unclassed forests, so these are other forest and wastelands belonging to the government and private individuals and communities. Reserved and protected forests are also referred to as permanent forest estates maintained for the purpose of producing timber and other forest produce and for protective reasons. Madhya Pradesh has the largest area under permanent forest, constituting 75% of its total forest area. Jammu and Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal and Maharashtra have large percentages of reserved forest of its total forest area, whereas Bihar, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Odisha and Rajasthan have a bulk of it under protected forest. All north eastern states and parts of Gujarat have a very high percentage of their forest as unclassed forest managed by local communities. Community and conservation. Conservation strategies are not new in our country. We often ignore that in India, forests are also home to some of the traditional communities. In some areas of India, local communities are struggling to conserve these habitats along with government officials recognizing that only this will secure their own long-term livelihood. In Sariska Tiger Reserve, Rajasthan, villagers have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. कब का है ये? 19 वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट 1972 का है. In many areas, villagers themselves are protecting habitats and explicitly rejecting government involvement. The inhabitants of the villages in the Alwar district of Rajasthan have declared 1200 hectares of forest as the Bhairavdev Dakob sanctuary, declaring their own set of rules and regulations which do not allow hunting and are protecting the wildlife against any outside encroachments. The famous Chipko movement in the Himalayas has not only successfully resisted deforestation in several areas but has also shown that community afforestation with indigenous species can be enormously successful. Attempts to revive the traditional conservation methods or developing new methods of ecological farming are now widespread. Farmers and citizens groups like the Beach Bachao Andolon in Tehri and Nabdanio have shown that adequate levels of diversified crop production without the use of synthetic chemicals are possible and economically viable. In India, joint forest management program furnishes a good example for involving local communities in the management and restoration of degraded डिग्रेडेड इसका बाद आता है ये डिग्रेडेड forest. The program has been in formal existence since 1988 when the state of Odisha passed the first resolution for joint forest management. JFM depends on the formation of local institutions that undertake protection activities mostly on degraded forest land managed by the forestry department. In return, the members of these communities are entitled to intermediary beneficiaries like non-timber forest producers and share it in the timber harvested by successful protection. The clear lesson from the dynamics of both environmental destruction and reconstruction in India is that local communities everywhere have to be involved in some kind of natural resource management. But there is still a long way to go before local communities are at the center stage in decision making, except only those economic or developmental activities that are people centric, environment friendly and economically rewarding. अब हम ये बॉक्स का जो कंटेंट है वो देख लेंगे. तो सैक्रेड ग्रोव्स, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सैक्रेड ग्रोव्स क्या है? ए वेल्थ ऑफ डाइवर्स एंड रेयर स्पीसीज. Okay, so nature worship is an age-old tribal beliefs based on the premise that all creations of nature have to be protected. Such beliefs have preserved several virgin forests in pristine form called sacred groves, the forests of god and goddesses. These patches of forest or parts of large forest have been left untouched by the local people, and any interference with them is banned. Certain societies revere a particular tree which they have preserved from time immemorial. The Mundas and the Santal of Chotnagpur region worship Mohua, Basia, Latifolia and Kadambo trees, and the tribals of Odisha and Bihar worship the tamarind and mango. The tribals of Odisha and Bihar worship the tamarind and mango, and Mundas and Santals of Chotnagpur region worship the Mohua tree. Right? Then बिहार एंड उड़ीसा का जो ट्राइबल है उन्होंने टैमारिंड एंड मैंगो को वर्शिप करते हैं. वर्शिप टैमारिंड, उड़ीसा टैमारिंड एंड बिहार मैंगो ड्यूरिंग वेडिंग्स. अच्छा, ड्यूरिंग वेडिंग्स टू मेनी ऑफ अस पीपल एंड banyan trees are considered sacred. Indian society comprises several cultures, each with its own set of traditional methods of conserving nature and its creations. Sacred qualities are often ascribed to springs, mountain peaks, plants and animals which are closely protected. You will find troops of macaws and langurs around many temples. They are fed daily and treated as part of the temple devotees. In and around Bishnoi villages in Rajasthan, herds of blackbuck, nilgai and peacocks can be seen as an integral part of the community and nobody harms them. गौतम बुद्ध का कोट दिया हुआ है. द ट्री इज ए पिक्यूलर ऑर्गेनिज्म ऑफ अनलिमिटेड काइंडनेस एंड बेनिवोलेंस एंड मेक्स नो डिमांड फॉर इट्स सस्टेनेंस and extends generously the product of its life activity. It affords protection to all beings, offering shade even to the X-men who destroy it. इसी के साथ हमारा चैप्टर 2 जो है ख़त्म हो गया. क्लास 10th का NCERT बुक. वाओ, इतनी जल्दी ख़त्म हो गया. तो हमने क्या क्या पढ़ा? देखो, ज़्यादा कुछ यहाँ पर नहीं पढ़ा कि फॉरेस्ट कंजर्वेशन चैप्टर का नाम ही था कि फॉरेस्ट एंड वाइल्ड लाइफ रिसोर्सेज. तो हमने फॉरेस्ट की जो क्लासिफिकेशन होती है, रिजर्व फॉरेस्ट, देन प्रोटेक्टेड फॉरेस्ट. ओके, तो ये सारे हमने पढ़ा. और कैसे बायोडाइवर्सिटी का मीनिंग पढ़ा, कैसे कंजर्व किया जा सकता है वो पढ़ा, और जो कंजर्वेशन करने के लिए क्या क्या एक्ट बनाया गया है वो पढ़ा, वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन के लिए क्या क्या एक्ट बनाया गया है वो पढ़ा. जैसे कि 2 एक ही पढ़ा, और कहाँ कहाँ जो है कुछ रिजर्व्स के नाम पढ़ा हमने कि यहाँ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स है और कहाँ वो लोकेटेड है, ठीक है। और उसके बाद हमने पढ़ा कि इस कुछ मूवमेंट के बारे में, ठीक है, कंजर्वेशन मूवमेंट के बारे में, देन सैक्रेड ग्राफ्स के बारे में पढ़ा, और इसी के चलते हमारा चैप्टर जो है ख़त्म हुआ। तो हम नेक्स्ट चैप्टर को में जाएंगे और वो चैप्टर इसी वीडियो में कंटिन्यू करेंगे। चलो, so third chapter is about water resources, so let's start reading। ये कुछ स्टोरी दिया हुआ है, चलो इसे छोड़ो। अब हम देखेंगे कि वाटर स्कैर्सिटी एंड द नीड फॉर वाटर कंजर्वेशन एंड मैनेजमेंट। तो गिवन द abundance and renewability of water, it is difficult to imagine that we may suffer from water scarcity. The moment we speak of water shortages, we immediately associate it with regions having low rainfall or those that are drought prone. We instantaneously visualize the deserts of Rajasthan and Oman balancing many matkas, earthen pots used for collecting and storing water and traveling long distance to get water. True, the availability of water resources varies over space and time, mainly due to the variations in seasonal and annual precipitation. But water scarcity in most cases is caused by overexploitation, excessive use, and unequal access to water among different social groups. Where is then water scarcity likely to occur? As you have read in the hydrological cycle, fresh water can be obtained directly from precipitation, surface runoff, and groundwater. Is it possible that an area of or region may have ample water resources but is still facing water scarcity? Many of our cities are such examples. Thus, water scarcity may be an outcome of large and growing population and पिक्चर्स दिखाया गया है कि वाटर स्कैर्सिटी के कॉन्सेप्ट्स के समझाने के लिए। सो कॉन्सिक्वेंट ग्रेटर डिमांड्स फॉर water and unequal access to it. A large population requires more water not only for domestic use but also to produce more food. Hence, to facilitate higher food grain production, water resources are being overexploited to expand irrigated areas for dry season agriculture. Irrigated agriculture is the largest consumer of water. Now it is needed to revolutionize the agriculture through developing drought-resistant crops and dry farming techniques. You may have seen in many television advertisements that most farmers have their own wells and tube wells in their farms for irrigation to increase their produce. But have you ever wondered what this could result in? That it may lead to falling groundwater levels, adversely affecting water availability and food security of the people. Post-independent India witnessed intensive industrialization and urbanization, creating vast opportunities for us. Today, large industrial houses are as commonplace as the industrial units of many MNCs. The ever-increasing number of industries has made matters worse by exerting pressure on existing freshwater resources. Industries, apart from being heavy users of water, also require power to run them. Much of this energy comes from hydroelectric power. Today in India, hydroelectric power contributes approximately 22% of the total electricity produced. Moreover, multiplying urban centers with large and dense populations and urban lifestyles have not only added to water and energy requirements but have further aggravated the problem. If you look into the housing societies or colonies in the cities, you would find that most of these have their own groundwater pumping devices to meet their water needs. Not surprisingly, we find that fragile water resources are being overexploited and have caused their depletion in several of these cities. So far, we have focused on the quantitative aspects of water scarcity. Now, let us consider another situation where water is sufficiently available to meet the needs of the people. But the area still suffers from water scarcity. This scarcity may be due to bad quality of water. Lately, there has been a growing concern that even if there is ample water to meet the needs of the people, much of it may be polluted by domestic and industrial waste, chemicals, pesticides, and fertilizers used in agriculture, thus making it hazardous for human use. Government of India has accorded highest priority to improve the quality of life and enhance ease of living of people, especially those living in rural areas, by announcing the Jal Jeevan Mission. The goal of JJM is to enable every rural household get assured supply of potable potable piped water at a service level of 55 liters per capita per day regularly on long-term basis by ensuring functionality of the tap water connections. India's rivers, especially the smaller ones, have all turned into toxic streams, and even the big ones like the Ganga and Yamuna are far from being pure. The assault on India's rivers, from population growth, agricultural modernization, urbanization, and industrialization, is enormous and growing by the day. This entire life stands threatened. You may have already realized that the need of the hour is to conserve and manage our water resources, to safeguard ourselves from health hazards, to ensure food security, continuation of our livelihoods and productive activities, and also to prevent degradation of our natural ecosystems. Overexploitation and mismanagement of water resources will improvise this resource and cause ecological crises that may have profound impact on our lives. Multipurpose river projects and integrated water resources management. But how do we conserve and manage water? Archaeological and historical records show that from ancient times we have been constructing sophisticated hydraulic structures like dams built of stone rubble, reservoirs or lakes, embankments and canals for irrigation. Not surprisingly, we have continued this tradition in modern India but by building dams in most of our river basins. Hydraulic structures in ancient India. In the 1st century BC, Sringavherpura near Allahabad had sophisticated water harvesting systems channeling the flood water of the river Ganga. During the time of Chandragupta Maurya, dams, lakes and irrigation systems were extensively built. Evidences of sophisticated irrigation works have also been found in Kalinga, Odisha, then Nagarjunkonda, Andhra Pradesh, Benur, Karnataka, Kolhapur, Maharashtra, etc. In the 11th century, Bhopal Lake, one of the largest artificial lakes of its time, was built. In the 14th century, the tank in Hoj Khas, Delhi, was constructed by the Iltutmish for supplying water to Siri Fort area. What are dams and how do they help us in conserving and managing water? Dams were traditionally built to impound rivers and rainwater that could be used later to irrigate agricultural fields. Today, dams are built not just for irrigation but for electricity generation, water supply for domestic and industrial uses, flood control, recreation, inland navigation, and fish breeding. Hence, dams are now referred to as multi-purpose projects where the many usages of the impounded water are integrated with one another. For example, in the Satluj Bias river basin, the Bhakra Nangal project water is being used both for hydel power production and irrigation. Similarly, the Hirakud project in the Mahanadi basin integrates conservation of water with flood control. Multi-purpose projects launched after independence with their integrated water resources management approach were thought of as the vehicle that would lead the nation to development and progress, overcoming the handicap of its colonial past. Jawaharlal Nehru proudly proclaimed that the dams as the temples of modern India. The reason being that it would integrate development of agriculture and the village economy with rapid industrialization and growth of the urban economy. सिंपल सी बात है, ये सब पढ़ने को मतलब ज़्यादा तो इंटरेस्टिंग भी नहीं है और इम्पोर्टेंट भी नहीं लग रहा है मेरे को, ठीक है। बाय द वे पढ़ना तो पड़ेगा, एक बार एटलीस्ट एक बार पढ़ना पड़ेगा आपको, ताकि आपको चीज़ों जब प्रीवियस ईयर पेपर आप देखोगे तो समझ में आए कि यार हाँ ये सारी चीज़ें एनसीईआरटी में था या जहाँ भी था, ठीक है। तो एक लिंक आप कर पाओगे, तो इसलिए पढ़ना तो पड़ेगा आपको पहली बार। देन ए डैम इज ए बैरियर अक्रॉस फ्लोइंग वाटर दैट ऑब्स्ट्रक्ट्स, डायरेक्ट्स और रिटार्ड्स द फ्लो, ऑफ्टन क्रिएटिंग अ रिजर्वर, लेक और इम्पाउंडमेंट। कि ये सारे चीज़ें तो पूछने वाला नहीं है ऐसे डायरेक्टली, मतलब नहीं पूछने वाला, तो देखना पड़ेगा, लिंक अप करना होगा आपको कि कौन सी चीज़ें पढ़नी है और कौन सी चीज़ें इंपॉर्टेंट है और कौन सी बस ऐसे ही है। डैम refers to the reservoir rather than the structure. Most dams have a section called a spillway or where over which or through which it is intended that water will flow either intermittently or continuously. Dams are classified according to structure, intended purpose or height. Based on structure and the materials used, dams are classified as timber dams, embankment dams or masonry dams with several subtypes. According to the height, dams can be categorized as large dams and major dams, or alternatively as low dams, medium height dams and high dams. ये क्या है, भादुसांग। ओके चलो ये सब छोड़ो। इन रिसेंट ईयर्स मल्टीपर्पज प्रोजेक्ट्स एंड लार्ज डैम्स हैव कम अंडर ग्रेट स्क्रूटनी and opposition for a variety of reasons. Regulating and damming of rivers affect their natural flow, causing poor sediment flow and excessive sedimentation at the bottom of the reservoir, resulting in rockier stream beds and poorer habitats for the river's aquatic life. Dams also fragment rivers, making it difficult for aquatic fauna to migrate, especially for spawning. The reservoirs that are created on the floodplains also submerge the existing vegetation and soil, leading to its decomposition over a period of time. Multipurpose projects and large dams have also been the cause of many new environmental movements like the Narmada Bachao Andolon and the Tehri Dam Andolon, etc. Resistance to these projects has primarily been due to the large-scale displacement of local communities. Local people often had to give up their land, livelihood and their meagre access and control over resources for the greater good of the nation. So, if the local people are not benefiting from such projects, then who is benefited? Perhaps the landowners and large farmers, industrialists and few urban centers. Take the case of the landless in a village. Does he really gain from such a project? So Narmada Bachao Andolon or Save Narmada movement is a non-governmental organization that mobilized tribal people, farmers, environmentalists and human rights activists against the Sardar Sarovar Dam being built across the Narmada River in Gujarat. It originally focused on the environmental issues related to trees that would be submerged under the dam water. Recently, it has refocused the aim to enable poor citizens, especially the ousties, that means displaced people, to get full rehabilitation facilities from the government. People felt that their suffering would not be in vain, accepted the trauma of displacement, believing in the promise of irrigated fields and plentiful harvests. So often the survivors of Rihand told us that they accepted their suffering as a sacrifice for the sake of their nation. But now, after 30 bitter years of being adrift, their livelihood having even been more precarious, they keep asking, are we the only ones chosen to make sacrifices for the nation? तो हालत बहुत बुरी है. Then Sardar Sarovar Dam has been built over the Narmada River in Gujarat. This is one of the largest water resource project of India, covering 4 states: Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and Rajasthan. So Narmada River project जो है महाराष्ट्र, राजस्थान, गुजरात एंड मध्य प्रदेश को कवर करता है. महाराष्ट्र, मध्य प्रदेश, राजस्थान एंड गुजरात. द Sardar Sarovar project would meet the requirement of water in drought prone and desert areas of Gujarat and Rajasthan. Irrigation has also changed the cropping pattern of many regions, with farmers shifting to water intensive and commercial crops. This has great ecological consequences like salinization of the soil. At the same time, तो हमने कहा थे कि चलो irrigation has also changed the cropping pattern of many regions, with farmers shifting to water intensive and commercial crops. This has great ecological consequences like salinization of the soil. At the same time, it has transformed the social landscape, that is increasing the social gap between the richer landowners and the landless poor. As we can see, the dams did create conflicts between people wanting different uses and benefits from the same water resources. In Gujarat, the Sabarmati Basin farmers were agitated and almost caused a riot over the higher priority given to water supply in urban areas, particularly during droughts. Interstate water disputes are also becoming common with regard to sharing the costs and benefits of the multipurpose project. Do you know that Krishna Godavari dispute is due to the objections raised by Karnataka and the Andhra Pradesh governments? It is regarding the diversion of more water at Koyna by the Maharashtra government for a multipurpose project. This should reduce downstream flow in their state with adverse consequences for agriculture and industry. तो ये कृष्णा गोदावरी डिस्प्यूट इम्पोर्टेंट है और डिटेल में पढ़ना पड़ेगा ये सब चीज़ों के बारे में. अब देखो यहाँ पर मैप दिया हुआ है मेजर रिवर्स एंड डैम्स जो दिखाया गया है, तो बहुत अच्छी मैप है ये. ठीक है, आपको इस मैप्स के थ्रू आप याद रखने में आसानी होगा कि यार देखो सलाल प्रोजेक्ट चेनाब रिवर के ऊपर है. देन जो भाखड़ा नंगल है वो आपका ये कौन सी रिवर है, ब्यास. भाखड़ा नंगल ब्यास में होगा क्या, कुछ सतलुज में होगा, सतलुज. देन गंगा में है, तेहरी है, देन आपका नारूडा है, ठीक है। तो ये मैप से आप पढ़ सकते हो, ठीक है। अच्छी मैप है ये, चलो बाद में देखेंगे। अब मोस्ट ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्शंस ऑफ द प्रोजेक्ट्स अरोज ड्यू टू देयर फेलियर टू अचीव द पर्पसेस फॉर व्हिच दे आर बिल्ड। Ironically, the dams that are constructed to control floods have triggered floods due to sedimentation in the reservoir. Moreover, the big dams have mostly been unsuccessful in controlling floods at the time of excessive rainfall. You may have seen or read how the release of water from dams during heavy rains aggravated the flood situation in Maharashtra and Gujarat in 2006. The floods have not only devastated life and property but also caused extensive soil erosion. Sedimentation also meant that the floodplains were deprived of silt, a natural fertilizer, further adding on to the problem of land degradation. It was also observed that the multi-purpose projects induced earthquakes, caused waterborne diseases and pests and pollution resulting from excessive use of water. ठीक है। अब देखो रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग क्या है ना। मैनी थॉट दैट गिवन द डिसएडवांटेजेस एंड राइजिंग resistance against the multi-purpose projects, water harvesting system was a viable alternative, both socio-economically and environmentally. In ancient India, along with the sophisticated hydraulic structures, there existed an extraordinary tradition of water harvesting system. People had in-depth knowledge of rainfall regimes and soil types and developed wide-ranging techniques to harvest rainwater, groundwater, river water and flood water in keeping with the local ecological conditions and their water needs. In hill and mountainous regions, people built diversion channels like the Gals or Khals of the western Himalayas for agriculture. Rooftop rainwater harvesting was commonly practiced to store drinking water, particularly in Rajasthan. In the floodplains of Bengal, people developed inundation channels to irrigate their fields. In arid and semi-arid regions, agricultural fields are converted into rain-fed storage structures that allow the waters to stand and moisten the soil, like the khadins in Jaisalmer and jodas in other parts of Rajasthan. In the semi-arid and arid regions of Rajasthan, particularly in Bikaner, Phalori and Barmar, almost all the houses traditionally had underground tanks or tonkas for storing drinking water. तो ये बात क्या कर रहा है, देखो इमेज को देखोगे तो अच्छे से पता चलेगा कि बारिश हुआ, छत पे बारिश हुआ और उसका जो जल है वो आके स्टोर हो रहा है आसपास में ग्राउंड के अंदर से, ओके अंडरग्राउंड में स्टोर हो रहा है कि वेल में, कुआं में। तो जब बाद में ज़रूरत पड़ेगा तो वहाँ से उठा पाएंगे उस जल को, ठीक है। तो ये होता है आपका वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग, रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग। नाउ द टैंक्स कुड बी एज लार्ज एज बिग रूम, a tank that was 6.1 meters deep, 4.2 meters long and 2.4 meters wide. So the tonkas are part of the well-developed rooftop rainwater harvesting system and are built inside the main house or the courtyard, and they are connected to the sloping roofs of the houses through a pipe. So rain falling on the rooftops would travel down the pipe and was stored in these underground tonkas. So the first spell of rain was usually not collected as this would clean the roofs and the pipes. The rainwater from the subsequent showers was then collected. The rainwater can be stored in the tonkas till the next rainfall, making it an extremely reliable source of drinking water when all other sources are dried up. ओके, सो टंकस इसलिए बनाया जाता है कि जब कहीं भी जल ना हो तब वहाँ से जल यूज़ कर सके, पर्टिकुलरली इन दिस समर्स। Rainwater or palar pani, as commonly referred to in these parts, is considered the purest form of natural water. Many houses constructed underground rooms adjoining the tonka to beat the summer heat as it would keep the room cool. Okay, so देखो many houses constructed underground rooms adjoining the tonka to beat the summer heat as it would keep the room cool. Now, interesting fact: rooftop rainwater harvesting is the most common practice in Shillong, Meghalaya and मेघालय। तो रूफटॉप हार्वेस्टिंग कहाँ मेनली देखा जाता है? शिलोंग एंड मेघालय में, ठीक है। शिलोंग मेघालय का अंदर ही शिलोंग है। इट इज़ इंटरेस्टिंग बिकॉज चेरापूंजी एंड मौसिनराम सिचुएटेड एट अ डिस्टेंस ऑफ 55 किलोमीटर फ्रॉम शिलोंग रिसीव्स the highest rainfall in the world, yet the state capital Shillong faces acute shortage of water. Nearly every household in the city has a rooftop rainwater harvesting structure. Nearly 15 to 25% of the total water requirement of the household comes from rooftop water harvesting. Today in western Rajasthan, sadly the practice of rooftop rainwater harvesting is on the decline as plenty of water is available due to the perennial Indira Gandhi canal. Though some houses still maintain the tonkas since they do not like the taste of tap water. Fortunately, in many parts of rural and urban India, rooftop rainwater harvesting is being successfully adapted to store and conserve water. In Gendathur, a remote backward village in Mysore, Karnataka, villagers have installed in their households rooftop rainwater harvesting system to meet their water needs. Nearly 200 households have installed this system, and the village has earned the rare distinction of being rich in rainwater. Then Gendathur receives an annual precipitation of 1000 mm, and with 80% of collection efficiency and of about 10 fillings, every house can collect and use about 50,000 liters of water annually. From the 200 houses, the net amount of rainwater harvested annually amounts to 1 lakh liters. Then rooftop harvesting was common across the towns and villages of the Thor. Rainwater that falls on the sloping roofs of houses is taken through the pipe into an underground tonka, circular holes in the ground, so built in the main house or in the courtyard. The picture above shows water being taken from a neighbor's roof through a long pipe. Here the neighbor's rooftop has been used for collection of rainwater. The picture shows a hole through which rainwater flows down into the underground tonka. Tamil Nadu is the first state in India which has made rooftop rainwater harvesting structure compulsory to all the houses across the state. I think ये तो सभी स्टेट में होना चाहिए, ताकि हम जैसे जल या वाटर का जो क्राइसिस, मतलब हम बोल रहा है कि यार ग्राउंड वाटर लेवल जो है नीचे जा रहा है, फिर हम पानी को जो है या जल को वेस्ट क्यों होने दे। तो हर स्टेट में ही ये अप्लाई हो जाना चाहिए, क्योंकि हर स्टेट में हमारा कंक्रीट की रूफ होती है, तो वहाँ से जो जल है उसे हम स्टोर करके रख सकते हैं। तो कंपलसरी होना चाहिए यार ये, ठीक है, हर स्टेट में होना चाहिए। एटलीस्ट जहाँ वृष्टिपात होती है तो सभी स्टेट में होती है इंडिया में, बाय द वे। तो ये एक अच्छी बात है कि तमिलनाडु ने पूरा कंपलसरी कर दिया कि यार आप छत बनाओगे तो मतलब ऐसा कुछ होगा कि आपका रूफ है तो उस रूफ, मतलब ऐसे तो नहीं होगा ना कि अगर छत नहीं बनाया तो फिर मैंने किसी जो कच्चा घर होती है वहाँ से तो हम नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि अगर मैंने जो खौर का चाल या टीन का अगर रूफ हो तो फिर वहाँ से तो रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग नहीं कर पाएंगे। तो इसलिए कंक्रीट का रूफ ही होना चाहिए। सो देयर आर लीगल प्रोविजंस टू पनिश द डिफॉल्टर्स ऑल्सो। सो तमिलनाडु इज ग्रेट। देन ये देखो बाम्बू ड्रिप इरिगेशन सिस्टम। ये बाम्बू ड्रिप इरिगेशन सिस्टम कहाँ की है? ये मेघालय में है। इन मेघालय ए 200-year old system of tapping stream and spring water by using bamboo pipes is prevalent. About 80 to 20 liters of water enters the bamboo pipe system, gets transported over hundreds of meters and finally reduces to 20 to 80 drops per minute at the site of the plant. ये पूरा डिटेल्स दिखाया गया है कि कैसे ये वाटर जो है ट्रांसपोर्ट किया जाता है बाम्बू पाइप के थ्रू, ठीक है। और ये याद रखना कहाँ पे दिखा जाता है, ये बाम्बू ड्रिप इरिगेशन सिस्टम आपको मिलेगा मेघालय में, ठीक है, मेघालय में। तो देखिए मेघालय में मौसिन डैम में जो है आपका वर्ल्ड का सबसे ज़्यादा वृष्टिपात देखा जाता है, फिर भी मेघालय ने प्रैक्टिस कर रहा है इतनी सारे वाटर कंजर्वेशन एंड ऑल, बट वी आर वेस्टिंग लॉट ऑफ वाटर, राइट। So we should take care of that. Okay friends, so thank you. एंड इसी के साथ हमारा जो है सेकेंड चैप्टर भी ख़त्म हो गया। तो सेकेंड चैप्टर वाटर के बारे में था, वाटर रिसोर्स के बारे में था। तो हम इस वीडियो को यहीं पे पॉज करेंगे, क्योंकि ये आधा घंटे के ऊपर हो गया है, और हम नेक्स्ट वीडियो में देखेंगे। फोर्थ चैप्टर हम नेक्स्ट वीडियो में देखेंगे। ओके।